Welcome to the Author Wheel. If you're unsure how to produce, publish, or promote your writing, you've come to the right place. Author Wheel courses are designed to help you save time, save money, get clarity, and keep your stories rolling. Hi. Okay, welcome. So today we have Sue Campbell here to talk to us about her workbook. And Sue, I'm going to just go ahead and let you introduce yourself and what your workbook is and everything that you are including in the Infostack.
Sure. So I'm Sue Campbell. I am founder of a company called Pages and Platforms, and we help writers write the best story possible and build an audience for it. So in the Infostack, this time around, I have my Pages and Platforms book marketing workbook in there. And I'm a book marketer who's worked with best-selling authors, traditionally published, independently published, fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter. I've worked with wide variety of people. And the biggest thing that I have found is that people have a lot of mindset blocks around marketing. I wish that I could invent a new word to describe what we're doing. I didn't have to use marketing because people really bring their own worst examples of marketing that they've experienced, and they don't want to be that person. Right. But that's really not what marketing is about. So it's my mission. I actually call myself a book marketing and mindset coach to get people through their mental obstacles so that they can actually do the action items required to build an audience.
I love that because it's true. So many of us associate marketing with things like phone calls as soon as you sit down to eat for a product you don't want, and it's smarmy people who shove their products down your throat. And like you say, that's not good marketing.
Right.
Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So why don't we dive into the questions? Are you also an author yourself, Sue?
I am a hybrid author. So I have a middle grade novel that's called The Cat, the Cash, the Leap, and the List that I published in 2018, which seems like, no, 2019, which still seems like 8 million years ago now. And that was my first fiction book. And then I also am a nonfiction author, traditionally published. I wrote a book with a dear friend of mine, and we've worked together professionally for years, called the Parental Leave Playbook. And it's about how to handle the parental leave transition, because in this country, you don't get a lot of help and support with that. So you're going to have to develop that for yourself.
I think I need that book for my daughter.
Absolutely.
I wish I had that book about 10 years ago.
Me too. Me too. It feels so good to have it out there for people because it is just a huge vacuum.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, so tell us what kind of motivated you then, or what to get into the coaching and the book marketing side of things and helping writers develop their platforms.
Yeah. So I was a freelance writer before I wrote my book. I've always thought of myself as nonfiction, sort of personal essayist is the space that I was always comfortable in. And I was working for a city government, and I'm like, what am I doing? I had my first child. I'm like, I need to show this kid that you can live your dreams. So I actually had to sit down and get my butt in the chair for the first time in a very serious way. So I started freelance writing on the side, writing for magazines, writing for websites. And then I quickly realized it's a lot easier and pays a lot better to get content marketing writing jobs for companies. So most of my writing work in that space migrated to writing for companies, and I got a certification as a content marketer. And I really liked it because that was that permission-based marketing where you're speaking to people who want your message and you're delivering so much value before you're ever asking for any money. And it's optional, right? Like, here's my free content. If you can't afford it, here's my, priced content if you can't afford it and you need further help. So I loved doing that. Then I started writing my first novel. And as that sort of approached completion, I was listening to the Story Grid podcast as a way to learn my fiction craft. And I'm like, who is this host guy? And how can he take a year off to write a book? Right. So I realized that Tim Grahl was a book marketer. and had a business where he was delivering courses to people who were learning how to market their books. And he actually announced that he was going to certify a bunch of coaches.
Mhm.
And Tim Grahl has had like 5 clients on the New York Times bestseller list all at the same time,
Wow.
which sounds impressive, but completely exhausting. Like, I actually hope that doesn't ever happen to me. We can just space them out. Thank you very much. But he was the person that I wanted to learn from. So I actually flew to Nashville and got trained by Tim and realized this is just the content marketing that I've been doing, but it's applied to authors. So now I can make my whole life about books. How awesome is this, right? So I can
Yeah.
write books. I can help people get their stories out into the world because writers really struggle with that. I can learn how to write, promote my own books. So I basically stumbled in through a series of just collecting the breadcrumbs into the perfect career for me. And I feel like this is the sweet spot for me, and everything else I've ever done has led to this point.
Well, I find that so interesting because I think I've been personally trying to develop my wide platform and get more direct sales and all of that. And one of the things that I have realized is that most authors, it seems like, and the training that even I've had up to this point has been, well, yeah, you have a freebie, you create a book funnel, and you get subscribers and ta-da, you get sales, right? Like that's how it works, right?
Right.
Except not quite. And so it's been very interesting to see kind of how, like you said, that content marketing and that more, what I'm going to say, modern traditional, and you can correct me on the terminology, I'm sure there's a proper term, but modern traditional marketing, all those products that are now being sold online through content marketing and applying that to books is so relevant. I feel like it's so fascinating, and it's where the market is moving.
Yes, I 100% agree. And it is an inherently creative activity that writers don't realize, right? There's so much opportunity to be creative within the space of your marketing, and it helps you really fulfill that writer's life, right? Because you get to connect with all of these people who care about what you care about. So you can go on podcasts and talk to these fascinating interviewers. You can go to conferences and you can talk directly to readers and other writers, right? It is a way to really live fully into what you always dreamed being an author would be like, right? And we have a framework at Pages and Platforms that we call the Happily Ever Author Framework, because it takes this 3-part framework, and then each of the 3 parts breaks down a little bit further. But everyone says to make it as an author, you have to be persistent. You have to persist. But no one ever tells you how to persist. The good news is that the key to persistence is actually the story that you're telling yourself, right? Which is great news because we're writers. So that's all we do is tell stories. So if we are telling ourselves a story that will keep us going, that is how we persist. So I like to say you have to be hard on your characters and easy on yourself, right? Do not beat yourself up in your own brain. You tell yourself the most empowering, inspirational story possible, and you save the drama for the books, right?
I like that.
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And the 3-part framework is, it's just the story you tell yourself, the story you write, and the story you share. So the story you share is that marketing piece, and it's about sharing. It's about making connections with readers, and readers are some of the most awesome people in the world.
So this next question kind of dovetails into what you were talking about. And maybe you already answered this question, but what is the biggest mistake you see early writers making in terms of their marketing?
So the biggest thing that I see is we just do Google searches and we read articles on tactics. And then we say, oh, all writers have to be on Twitter, or all writers have to be on TikTok. And you try to chase every single tactic that everyone else is doing. That is only going to get you so far. What you need to do is start with an approach that is very tightly focused on your ideal reader. So if your ideal reader is not on Twitter If your ideal reader is not on TikTok, you're going to be wasting your time and spinning your wheels and not getting results. And you get frustrated. And then you say, I hate marketing. I knew I hated marketing. Look at that. Right. So instead of looking out at tactics, you have to start with a fundamental strategy that's based on your ideal reader. So I have people start there. Who is your ideal reader? Because they are going to be the people who read your book and can't shut up about it, and start passing it around and building that word of mouth for you. And then the marketing system that I use, which is spelled out in the book, in the workbook in Infostack, is a 4-part system, and it's permission. So that's building an email list, right? Absolutely. Your number one marketing asset is your email list of subscribers, because then you can sell your backlist. You can sell all of your other, books that you write from here on out. You can sell courses if you want to sell courses, right? But if you can't reach someone who loved your book, if you can't reach them when your next book comes out, you're reinventing the wheel every single time you write a book, and it's frustrating. So email list is number one. Number two is content. So like the grocery store sample, right? Giving people a taste of how you write and the experience and the emotional experience that they have when they read your work. The third piece is outreach, which is where the magic happens. You have to know who your ideal reader is, and then know where they are in the world, who's already built that audience. And then you go get yourself in front of that audience. That's where the growth and the magic happens. It's also the scariest part, which is why we come back to mindset again. And then the final piece is just closing that loop and doing the selling. And all selling is making offers to people who you know it would benefit them. It would actually be enriching to them. They would want it, right? If you're a children's book author and you meet a 37-year-old single guy who doesn't have any kids and doesn't have any nieces and nephews, and you're trying to push him to buy your children's book, that's going to feel icky to both of you. But if you write a book, a fantasy novel, and it's about dragons, and you meet someone who's a total dragon nut, of course you're going to want to tell them about your book, because they can't get enough of that, right? So that's, again, the ideal reader takes so much of the smarminess out of marketing, because you're only trying to reach people who would love to be reached.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it seems so common sense. Like we should all know this and all be doing this all the time. And yet we don't.
Right. Because that's just the internet by its nature. There's a lot of good information out there, but people want this quick consumable content. So you get so many articles that go this deep and are just on tactics, or worse yet, are just like, well, you have to write a great book and you have to have a great cover. Yes, you do, but none of that is going to bring people to your book in and of itself. Right. That's it's the starting point. Obviously you have to have that, but that's not how you bring people to your book. They don't magically appear because you've written a great book with a great cover.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about how your workbook would lead a writer through this process.
Sure. So the book starts out with mindset. I think that's something that really sets it apart, is there aren't a lot of marketers who focus on it in the way that I do and to the extent that I do. And again, lots of people doing great work. But that's kind of my personal bent, is I've always been a mindset nut, and I'm always looking for how do I, train my own brain and make sure that I'm managing my own mind. And so I bring those tools to the writer, and that's where the book starts. Because if you try to just force yourself through a checklist, and yes, there are checklists in the book so that you know what to do, but you will hit a mindset block so fast that you will just want to throw that checklist in the garbage, right? And go to Netflix or, the cookie cupboard instead. Yeah. So you've got to start with mindset. And once we do that, then we can start working through the rest of the book. And you now have the mindset tools that you can return to anytime when you do feel resistance creeping up on you. You have the tools to deal with it and keep going.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of has already been answered, but we'll ask the question explicitly anyway.
Okay.
So what's the number one thing that you want a student to take away from your workbook, or to pull out? Like if there's one thing, maybe specifically within mindset or specifically within marketing, that writers need to learn.
Yeah, the first piece is the managing your own mind. and making sure that you're telling yourself the absolute best story that you can, and you're framing things in an empowering way. And knowing the difference between a thought and a circumstance, right? Marketing is a thing that exists in the world. I love it. You might hate it, right? So marketing itself is neutral until we have a thought about it. So get your mindset right first. You asked for one thing and I'm going to give you two. Once you have that, then your number one asset is to grow your email list. That should be your laser focus, is to grow that email list.
Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because I have been traditionally published with my fiction, and I was frustrated because you can't do it. I felt like, I can't market my books because, advertise, there's no ROI on the advertising when you're traditionally published. And then I was listening, I don't remember who it was, but I was listening to a podcast and it just hit me. Nobody's going to grow my email list for me, but me. My publisher's not going to grow my email. That's my job. That I can do, and that will pay off. So I've been I worked on that. And so, and I am 100% in your camp on that. And now I'm starting, my own little imprint and sticking my toe in the water to be a hybrid author. But absolutely, like, I wouldn't have had the courage, I don't think, if I hadn't seen that growing that list. And I think that growing that list helps your mindset too, because when you do get fans and then the fans email you, and I had a couple of emails this morning, and they love your book, or they want to be on your advanced reader team, or those things. It's like you're building a little community. Absolutely. And that helps you be persistent, because now you have somebody who cares if you write the next book in the series.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a very good thing. So.
All right. Well, so I think that kind of answers all of our primary questions. Anything else, Greta, that you want to pick Sue's brain about?
Well,
such a great opportunity. I'm like, what else could I think of?
I think off air, I think we were like, it's just some personal things, like, okay, But no, why don't you just tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and what you have to offer?
Yeah, so pagesandplatforms.com/subscribe is the best place to get all kinds of goodies that we offer writers. And we'd love to have you on the mailing list. That's my number one job, is to grow my mailing list as well. So I practice what I preach.
Awesome.
Well, that's awesome.
Well, so then now my next question is, what's your freebie offer on your list?
So it is actually a compendium of various things for authors. So
Perfect.
one of the things we have on there is using story types to improve your manuscript. We have our own manifesto for how to start an editing group as opposed to a critique group, and why that's a better model, and that a lot of writers are missing. So we've got a lot of goodies in there, but that's just two of them.
Wow,
awesome.
that sounds wonderful.
I'm going to go sign up.
Yeah, I think I'm right after you.
You'll see us next 1 and 2.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up everything, Sue. So thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck with the Infostack and with Pages and Platforms, and we'll be on your list soon.
Thank you so much. It was so fun to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sue.